In our previous video, we saw how to create our index.html page and get it rendering to screen. We also then created our about.html page, but as yet we haven't got that linked. We're going to look at how to do that in this video. To achieve it, we need to do something called routing. You've already been introduced to routing in Flask because we used this decorator here, which we discussed before, and the /. So when we go to the / on the top level of our site, it then returns the template from our index function. The root decorator binds the index function to itself so that whenever that root is called, the function is called. And this function is also called a view. So let's create another root and another view. This time we're going to use a decorator, app.root, and the path is going to be about. We're going to bind that to a view that we'll call about, and then this time we'll return render_template about.html. So whenever we navigate to /about on our page, then that will return the template. So now what we need to do is update the href in our index.html so that it's / for the home page and /about for the about page. Let's do that now. We'll update it in our index.html and also in our about.html. So href equals / for the home page and /about for the about page. I'll save those, and when I refresh my preview now, if I click on About, then my About page is rendered, click on Home, and I go back to the home page. I'll bring the address bar into view here so that you can see what's happening with the URLs when we click on each different thing. When I click on About, we can see that /about is our path, and when I click on Home, it's just the standard top level. So that's working as expected. But what I can also do, rather than having to type the path like that, is use something called template logic. This is using the Ginger templating language, and we'll have a look at this more in future videos. But just to demonstrate, what we can do is inside the href, put two opening curly braces, URL_for, and then the word index inside the brackets, and then two closing curly braces. And I'll do the same for about. Two opening curly braces, URL_for, and then the word about, and two closing curly braces. When Flask sees these two opening curly brackets, it knows that what's actually inside there is going to be some code. And what we're doing is calling this URL_for function that looks up the view called index, or the view called about, and then injects some text, which is the actual root. The names have to correspond to the views, so our index view and our about view. I'm going to copy this and paste it into our about.html page as well. When I save that, go back to my preview, I can see that everything continues to work as expected. Flask is looking up our index and about views and injecting the URL for it into the href. Let's create another list element. This time we're going to have a contact page. So I'm going to look up the URL for contact, so I'll need to create a view called contact and just change the text there. I'll copy that and paste that into our about.html page as well, so that my navigation bar is the same between the files. And then I can right-click on my about.html page, duplicate it, and change its name to contact.html. I'll now just edit the contact.html page and change the words about page to contact us. Now that that's done, of course, before it'll work, I need to create my root and my view. So we'll go back to our run.py file, put a couple of blank lines in, create a new app.root decorator. This time our URL is going to be /contact, and the view, as we've already said, is going to be called contact. And that's going to return the contact.html template. If I save that, and now go back to my preview pane and refresh, then we can see that now I have my 3 items, and when I click on contact, it brings us to contact us. Sometimes though, when we're creating these URLs, we may get the name wrong. For instance, if I were looking for the URL for home here, instead of the URL for index, obviously my home view does not exist. And Flask will pick that up for us. If I go back and refresh this and try go to the home page now, then I'll get an error. It'll say, couldn't build URL for endpoint home. Did you mean about instead? So Flask will actually give us hints as to maybe which view we were looking for. In this case, it's wrong. I was looking for the index endpoint. I'll just go back and correct that. So now we have 3 templates, 3 roots, and we've also used some very basic Jinjar templating. This is all very useful, but it would be even more useful if we only had to create our navbar once, so that every time we added a new page, we didn't have to replicate those changes across each of our templates. We can do this, and this is called template inheritance. We're going to have a look at how to implement that in our little project in the next video.